So,
Nice. Yeah. No,
well, it's the National Day of Prayer.
yeah, it's so crazy that that is just so little signaled when we're there. I'm gonna put up a flag here in just a second, but I could use a volunteer online if somebody wants to call down the power for us. Anybody wanna volunteer to help us with that?
Sure, I'll do the prayer.
Susan, all right, great. We'll get ready to roll here in just a second. While we're gathering people in, Scott, I'm assuming we still have people coming in. This is gearing up to be a good group. Susan and Diane, I don't see Lori just yet, but thank you so much.
Oh, that's
Thank
okay.
you so much. So you guys, for the first time, you know what I've been promising you for weeks and months, and I've been so embarrassed and ashamed that I keep telling you I'm gonna get a workbook for you. And so now when you log in, you go to the learning section, there's the workbook there, and we'll keep updating it. You'll get the updates automatically, and you know, there's a little charge on that just so we can try to keep working it and printing it and getting it going. But then you'll have the ability to have this in kind of a book form. I wish I could be with you and just go around everywhere you go, and Carol, you know, help, but you're doing a great job anyway explaining it. You don't need me. But I wish I could be everywhere you are and just go around with you. But here you'll have the book and we got the videos going, so you'll be able to do that. We're about ready to get going. Why don't we then, Susan, if you would please, if you'd open for us in prayer, and then let me get a flag up here. I was going to go across the way and find a flag, but wasn't able to do that. All right, Susan, if you would please.
Father God, we just thank you for this opportunity to get together to do this appointment, very important assignment that you have given us to be sovereign and know what it is to be sovereign and to take back this country. And we are the answer to what ails America. We just thank you, Lord, that this session is what you want us to say, and that Ken has the words according to what you want him to say, and the presentation will fall upon ears that will hear. And we just give you the glory and honor for it in Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen. And then Scott, would you mind leading us in the pledge?
My pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of
of the United States of America,
and to the
to the
republic
republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and
justice for all.
All right, you guys. Oh my goodness, man. I am so excited. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time. Thank you for inviting other people in. I view that as a very sacred trust, that to have time with you. Because what Susan was praying about, we don't talk about this much anymore, the word sovereignty. We don't talk about that much anymore. And then when we do talk about people being sovereign, it's captured a negative connotation. When people say they're sovereign, because we're the bossy boss, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about servant leadership. Remember President Kennedy, right? Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And man, our country needs a lot of help. Let me tell you a story, guys. True story. Last week I was in South Carolina to meet with legislators there that, by the way, are very excited about the National Federalism Initiative and joining with us on that. And then I was asked to speak at the State Policy Network, which is a network of the state policy think tanks around the nation. There are about 70 of them. They asked me to speak at that. And so we took advantage of the opportunity to go meet with South Carolina legislators while we were there. Met the Speaker, Senate President, met with a bunch of them, and they're going to send a delegation in September to the summit and work with us on this. And it was just phenomenal. But one of the days at the SPN, we're in Charlotte, South Carolina. And this one afternoon, we went to go see Fort Sumter. I'd never been there before. And I'd never really studied much about Civil War. I didn't know much about Civil War. So we go out to Fort Sumter and, this big, massive fort and everything, and the shelling and everything just leveled it. I mean, it was like buildings all around. It was this whole big fort structure. But that was where the first shot of the Civil War was fired. And so we check it out and, it's amazing. And we're on the boat coming back. And I'm sitting on the boat and I'm kind of making conversation with our tour guide. And I'm just thinking, how in the world did we get to the point where we're firing shots on each other as Americans? And I'm just thinking about that and trying to just stewing on how do we get to the point where we fire shots on each other? And I'm talking to our tour guide. He asked me what we're doing. I said, well, we're working on helping people understand how we can take control of our government, how we act like the sovereign, Susan, how we act what they intended us to do. And I was telling them, if we learn these basic principles, we can do this in as little as 5 minutes a week. And the guy sitting across from me, John from Philly, sitting across the table. John from Philly says, I had to come here because I'm afraid to travel internationally because of our president. I'm afraid to go anywhere internationally. I don't think I'm safe. And I said, well, John, well, first of all, when I was talking to the tour guide, he says, I vote for you for president. I'm like, oh, no. We've got to solve things right where we live. And that's when he talks about I didn't feel safe. And so I'm telling John, right, the things that we talk about. I don't want a blue king or a red king ruling over me and my family. I want to govern myself in Utah, unique from Michigan, unique from New Hampshire, unique from Texas. I want to govern myself right here. And you guys, when I said I don't want a blue king or a red king, a woman 2 tables away, not in our conversation, she says, Trump should be in jail. And she just screams it out. Trump should be in jail. And her husband sitting next to her, I said, well, let me ask you a question. I'm assuming you probably run something in your life before, club, an organization, maybe even a company. And suppose you don't hardly ever show up and you don't know who the employees are. You don't give them the job description. You never follow up to see how they're doing. And I got just to that point, and this woman yells out again, Trump should be in jail. And she ushers her husband out of the seat, out of the cabin of the boat. And as far as I know, she jumped overboard to start working on the sharks. And how did we get to the point that we've fired shots on each other in the United States of America? We can't even talk about government. Not politics, government. But you guys, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about our government and the structure of our government. And we're not talking about the left structure. We're not talking about the right structure. As a matter of fact, I'm going to hand these out, and there's one for you and one for you, and we'll put another one over there and another one over there. You guys know what these are, right? You guys know these are football penalty flags, right?
There's some people in the waiting room. I can't.
Oh, you can't get them
I
in?
can't get them in.
Oh, goodness. What's going on with that?
That's okay. It's probably me.
Hey, Mark, how come we can't get people in? He says there's people in the waiting room. We can't get them in. Let me reclaim the host and see if we get them in there. That's weird. I don't know.
Oh, there they are.
I don't know. Hey, Mark, if you maybe you could do the host thing. There we go.
Okay,
Welcome,
here we go.
everybody.
Yep.
Welcome, everyone. You just missed my story from last week. I'll try to catch you up. My story from last week. All right, some of you will have to mute. That goes back in here. There we go. Yeah, mute all, and we'll talk later. So we're just talking about last week. I'm in South Carolina. We go to Fort Sumter. First shot of the Civil War. I've never been there. We're on the boat coming back, and I'm like, just pondering, how in the world do we ever get to the point that we fire shots on each other? I'm thinking about that. I'm talking to our tour guide and telling him what we're doing. We're not talking about politics. We're talking about how we, the people, take our rightful place in this government where they intended us to be as the owners of this government. And I'm thinking about that and I'm talking about that. And I said, we've got to deal with things in our state. John from Philly sitting across the table from me. And John from Philly says, I vote for you for president. I said, man, heavens no, I don't want that. I want to govern myself in my state. And I want to govern myself in Utah according to Utah culture and values and history. And I want Lori to do the same thing in Colorado and Susan to do the same thing in Michigan. And I want Danny to do it in Texas and Carol in New Hampshire, right? And so I'm telling you, we need to just govern ourselves. I don't want a red king or a blue king. And right at that point, this lady, two tables away from me, when I said, I don't want a red king or a blue king, she shouts out, Trump should be in jail. And I'm like, and her husband's sitting next to her, kind of a little sheepishly. And I said, well, sir, let me ask you, I'm assuming you probably been in charge of something in your life, a club, maybe an organization, maybe a company. And how does it work out if you don't hardly ever show up? You don't know who your employees are. You don't give them a job description and you never follow up to see how they're doing. And I got right to that point, and this woman shouts out again, even louder, Trump should be in jail. That's pretty close to what she sounded like. And she ushers her husband out of his seat and marches out of the cabin of this ship. And as far as I know, she jumped into the water to start telling her story to the sharks. And you guys, I had just come from Fort Sumter wondering, how do we get to the point in the United States of America that we could fire shots on each other? And that's how. We can't even talk about government, not politics. In fact, the people one table away, a couple, they came up and said, we still don't know what your politics are. Because we're just talking about structure. We're talking about us, as Susan prayed for us, as the sovereign of this government, where we understand who we are. We know who we are. We know that it's the structure of our government that secures our rights. It's the states that secure that structure and maintain it in balance, which means, you guys, who we hire as our state leaders right where we live, that's the most important hire that we ever make. For us to hire and train and make sure they know the structure and they're good, wise, and just stewards. They're fiduciaries, meaning they exercise the utmost good faith and loyalty to us, and that they are capable of operating within the system. And then we have to know how to influence them. That's lesson 5. And then we have to know how to leverage our voice. This is where we're going, you guys. And we're talking about structure, not politics. Is that okay? I just handed out some football penalty flags to guys here. You all just act like, here, I'm going to throw one at you right there. You all act like you got a football penalty flag. If we talk about politics, you throw a flag. We're going to talk about the structure of our government so that we fix what's going on, so that we can sit on a boat together and talk about the government and not have to lose whatever she lost, goodness, man, and then have to get clear out of the cabin of the ship because somebody's talking about government, not politics. You guys, we got to get together. We've got to be able to talk about our government if we're going to fix what's going on with our government. Is that fair? All right, so let me get that off the screen, and Scott, you just let me know if we get people in the waiting room. I'm going to share my screen.
I'm just getting messages from the online audience. Can you tell everybody to mute?
Yeah, guys, if you could all mute, and we'll get to questions and stuff at the end as we go, and just mute as we start going along so we don't get the reverberation, and we'll get that going. And so you guys online now, for the first time ever, you're the very first ones ever that we've taken the information from this class, we're putting it into a workbook. So you now have a workbook that's online. We'd ask that you help us pay for the time and things that it took, and to help move this forward, there's a donation button on the website. We want to make this information free, but we've got to keep things moving, the website and all that. We'll talk about that more later, but our goal, and here's the goal. I want you guys to hold me to this. This is where we're going. So first of all, that's not the one we did that one before. This is why I'm here, you guys. I'm taking off Sunday to go down to Texas to see this little guy. And he tells his mom, I'm grandpa's little guy. And that melts my heart. It just melts my heart because you see that little smile, you see those bright eyes, and he's going to try to start a family one day. And I hope he's going to give me great grandchildren. And his two sisters and one cousin, all girls, I hope they give me great grandchildren. But he's going to try to start a family and buy a home and make his way in the world. And we've already loaded him with $37 trillion in debt. We've already overspent $1.3 trillion just up to March. And we're putting that on his credit card. And I think about that every single day on what we're leaving to them. Right now, statistically, quantifiably, objectively, subjectively, we're leaving America worse than we found it. And I can't sleep at night thinking about that. I think about these little grandkids, and I think about your kids and grandkids and the next generation that does not deserve that at all. I'm working on an article, you guys. I'm going to get it going. It's called America 2076. What's America like for our 300th birthday if we just keep watching Dancing with the Stars? And we keep, their basketball game on. I had something else. I couldn't get around to it. The dollar is gone. The value of it's gone. Our economy is gone. Who's the light of liberty in the world if we don't have time to self-govern? We could paint a really dark picture, but that's not what we're about. We're about passing it on better. And just like if the boss of the company doesn't show up and doesn't know who the employees are, doesn't give them the job description, doesn't follow up, it's gonna fail. We're the boss of this thing. That's what we're talking about tonight. This is my little guy right here. My daughter wakes up one morning and she sees little flower footprints all around the house. And she sees Henry right there. You see his little panda bear right there on about row 5, right? Just looking out over the scene. He's not 2 now. He was 2 when that was taken. But you guys, we all know this. We can teach and train and time out and shake our fist at our 2-year-olds. They're still gonna make a mess. Doesn't matter what we do. We can teach the best lesson in the world. And if we turn our head for a second, that 2-year-old's gonna make a mess. Because that's what they do. And our framers knew that government's just like a 2-year-old. And so they designed our structure with checks and limits and restraints so that we can keep an eye on that government all the time. Because if we don't watch a 2-year-old and it makes a mess, it's not the 2-year-old's fault. And just like our government, because they know, they told us. George Washington says government's like fire. Government's like fire, right? It's a fearful servant. Or it's a good servant, it's a fearful master, right? They knew that. If we don't watch and check every minute of every day and government makes a mess, it's not government's fault, right? Now this little guy, when my daughter saw him, the first thing he did, he puts up his hands and he says, "Don't see me, Mom. Don't see me." And government, when it makes a mess, first thing it says, "Don't see me." It's our job. It's our job to put restraints and checks on 2-year-olds. It's our job to put checks, restraints, limits on our government, or we have nobody to blame but ourselves. This is the United States Senate, you guys, a year ago. Unanimously. When do they do things unanimously in Washington? United States Senate. National debt is a threat to national security. Back in the good old days when the debt was $34 trillion. It's now just about $37 trillion. It's going to cross $37 trillion any day now. You guys, that's a $3 trillion annual deficit. The amount we overspend in a year is the deficit. The accumulation of that amount is the debt. Right? Last year, we were paying $659 billion just in interest. That'll be $1.5 trillion this year in interest. You guys know what we get for interest in return for paying interest? Do you know what we get for interest? We make the payment, 1.5 trillion. You know what we get in return? Nothing. Nothing. Except we've wasted their future. You talk about taxation without representation. Holy heavens, what we put off. I mean, so the deficit last year, 1.7 trillion. It's going to be, it's already almost 3 trillion from then until now. Deficit, overspending. This year, it's going to be another 3 trillion. This is the one that gets me. China and Europe are developing alternate payment systems to weaken the dollar because they can do math. Let's see, you're going to overspend 3 trillion. You've got to refinance about a third of your 37 trillion. And we're tired of playing the let's play stupid game where you print money and send it out to the world and our dollars lose more and more and more of their value for you to keep overspending, and they're done. You're going to see some big changes this year in the international payment systems because they're done with that game, you know. And then they say interest is now the second largest federal expense, growing 10 times faster than everything else. And guess what? In their unanimous resolution, they could figure out that these deficits are unsustainable, irresponsible, and dangerous. Congratulations. You know what their solution was? We're going to try harder to institute regular order in the U.S. Senate. That's their solution. I mean, you guys, that's red alert. We're stealing 1.7, now $3 trillion from the future. We're just taking it and stealing it. That's red alert in my book, but that's what we're doing, guys. We're not going to put up with it. Here's some of the things that are going on. You know, the really important things that we have to spend money on. We have to overspend almost $3 trillion a year because we've got important things to do, you guys. We got really important things to do, like genital washing, like, let's see, I'm not seeing anybody in there, Scott.
I'm just,
Yeah, okay.
I just don't, I just.
No
we gotta
worries.
check it every once in a while.
No worries, no worries.
Sorry.
These are the important things that we have to overspend $2 to $3 trillion a year. Vietnamese male prostitutes. That's worth putting on our kids' tab, right? You know, go to our kids and say, hey, you know, Henry, we just had to have $442,000 for male Vietnamese prostitutes. You're never going to pay that much tax in your whole lifetime unless we devalue the dollar so much that that's how much you pay in a week. Neon Light Museum, worst Super Bowl commercial ever. They couldn't even run it. World of Warcraft, you get the idea. We're telling our kids and our grandkids, this is so important that we've got to put it on your tab and add interest to it, for which we get nothing. And come on now. Here we go. So this is the plan. The plan, now you guys do your business plan like this, right? That your spending is going to exceed your revenues forever. That's a great plan. Guys are smiling. Come on, this is the plan. It's on paper. Our spending is going to exceed our revenues forever. Those lines never come back to meet, ever. It's not even in the plan. It's not even, you know, we're going to think about balancing the budget someday. No. That's crazy talk. We're going to put this on our kids' tab forever. You guys, that is immoral. That's immoral. How do we get back to that? Come on now, let's go. There we go. Number 2, federal expense growing 10 times faster than everything else, interest on the debt. We're spending more on interest than national defense, more on interest than veterans, more on interest than education. The federal government shouldn't be doing anyway. It's not in the Constitution. Interest on the debt. And that's going to be the number 1 federal expense very soon. You know why we're doing it? Why it's so important that we have all these things? Because this is the return on investment for lobbying Congress on major legislation. Blue chip companies, just your regular old companies, if they get an 11% return on investment, that was a banner year. But when you're lobbying Congress, oil companies get 6,000% return on investment. They spend $1 million lobbying, they get $6 billion back. And then they just peel off one little million of that and they just keep going. And then they're playing with house money. But the multinationals, they get 22,000%. They put $1 million up, they get 22 billion. But you guys, that's your money, that's your kids' money. And we're letting that happen, right? We're letting that 2-year-old tramp flour all over the place. We're letting him just climb up the shelves and we're not even keeping an eye on it. If you're a drug company, 78,000% return on investment. Because we've allowed things to be taken to Washington. And the reason that's happening is because they got to pay to be on the committee. Both parties, you got to pay up to $500,000 to be on the committee that allows you to shake down more companies and more people to get more of your money so that they can stay on the committee and then get reelected. That's happening right now. And they spend 2/3 to 3/4 of their time just dialing for dollars. The whole congressional schedule is arranged around fundraising. Lucky if they spend 2 hours a day doing the work we send them back to do. The rest of the time, it's bloating up the power to the federal government because we let them do it so that they can get more money for their next campaign. And the companies are more than willing to pay because the return that they're getting on that investment is outrageous because we're not even paying attention to it. Regulation, this is just the cost of federal regulation. Before we even start competing with the world, it costs us $2 trillion to comply with federal regulation. Now, some of that's changing back and forth, but that is a tax that just hits us all. And then this one, the American Bar Association did a study one time to try to find out how many federal felonies there are, and they quit counting at 5,000. 5,000 federal felonies. There's only 3 in the Constitution. Treason, counterfeiting, and piracy. That's it in the Constitution for federal felonies. They quit counting at 5,000. And every one of you, you're way above average because you're here trying to figure out how to govern your country. Average person commits 3 federal felonies a day. Could you imagine what it would be like again if your government worked for you instead of the other way around? If your government was concerned about stepping out of line on you instead of the other way around. That's what we're talking about in this course, you guys. That's what we're working on because then, like I told you, first thing government does when it gets in trouble, don't see me. We've got to shine the light. We've got to get government back where it belongs, and it's our job. This is Ron Paul. I love the way he said this. Money and power only tempt the special interests who wield the power because we let it. The whole process feeds on itself. Everyone is rewarded by ignoring constitutional restraints while expanding and complicating the bureaucratic state. I mean, think about it. In our Constitution, federal government had such little power that Thomas Jefferson, when he was going to take office for the first time, he said, I'm really at a loss as to what we're going to do all day. There's so little things the federal government was actually supposed to do. But because we're not watching, they say, well, I'm going to take that power. I'm going to take this power because I can sell it. If I take that power, they're going to pay me for my next campaign because they're getting 6,000, 22,000, 78,000% return on investment. So there's a market for them to take our power all day long if we're not watching. I mean, if you could honestly get a 22,000% return on investment, would you like walk for miles? Would you, walk over hot coals to get a 22,000% return on your investment? And you knew it was like clockwork. You just put the money in, it comes out. That's what's happening in Washington right now because we're allowing it. So, but like back where we were with my dear friend on that boat, right? I just imagine you run something. Congress couldn't run a lemonade stand. You had Milton Friedman, I think it was, that said if you put Congress in charge of the Sahara Desert within a couple of years, there'd be a shortage of sand. But we know how to run things, right? But if you imagine, right? You imagine you're the boss. You don't ever show up. Maybe once in a while you show up. You don't know who your employees are. And you don't give them the job description. And you don't follow up to see how they're doing. We know the answer to that, right? 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100, that fails. Why are we doing that with our government? We know the answer. It's not even a close call. That fails every time. And yet that's how we're running our government. W. Edwards Deming was kind of like a saint in Japan. He was the guy that developed the just-in-time inventory and the total quality management. They literally have statues to him all around Japan. Love this quote. Every system is perfectly designed to achieve the results that it gets. United States of America was designed and maintained at one time to produce the greatest prosperity the world's ever seen. The most powerful nation the world's ever seen, benevolent nation that would fight wars and only ask for enough land to bury our dead. Because that system did that. Well, I mean, Scott, what happens if you don't, change the oil for 200,000 miles? Boom. Mark, what happens if you don't rotate the tires, like every 200,000 miles or so?
Something's gonna go bad on that tire.
Right? I mean, we haven't been maintaining the system basically forever. But see, here's what George Mason told us. They warned us and they said, frequent recurrence to fundamental principles is essential. No free government or the blessings of liberty. Anybody want free government? I do, right? Anybody want blessings of liberty? I do. They said no free government nor the blessings of liberty can be preserved to any people but by frequent recurrence to fundamental principles. Let's break that down. What is we know what frequent is, right? What does recurrence mean?
On a regular basis.
Right? Go back, review it, study it, ponder it, look at it, pay attention to it. Go back to it frequently. Go back to what? Fundamental principles. Now, you guys, I was kind of pondering, and I thought I knew what fundamental principles were, what we're talking about, what we're teaching, that I know this, I got it. Then I found a law review article last fall. Utah Law Journal, it should be in the workbook. Utah Law Journal said the fundamental principles are, number one, popular sovereignty. We're the boss. We have to be engaged in our government. We have to watch the 2-year-old or it's going to make a mess. Number two, federalism. The structure of our government, the governing partnership between the state and the national government, and that balance of power between them to keep power from centralizing. Those are the fundamental principles. You know what happens when you get elected to state office? You get this really cool pin that I have on my jacket over there. You get this little pass that gets you into the buildings and parking, and you fill out the insurance forms, and they show you how the microphones work, and they kind of talk about how committee structure works, and they show you where the bathrooms are. That's important. And then they say, welcome aboard. Oh, one other thing. Just remember the lobbyists aren't your friends when you're no longer in office. I found out that's true. Christmas cards stop. All the invitations stop. Your jokes aren't funny anymore, and that's training for state legislators, state leaders. I've asked state leaders all across the nation, hey, what was your training like for constitutional fundamentals? Number one answer, they just laugh. Constitutional fundamentals, are you kidding me? They just laugh. But they told us, and you guys, please look and see if your Constitution has this in it, or if it ever had it in it. This is Article 1, Section 27 of the Utah Constitution. It says, it starts with frequent recurrence. Frequent recurrence to fundamental principles is essential to the security of individual liberty and the perpetuity of free government. Some of your states say frequent recurrence to fundamental principles is absolutely necessary. Absolutely necessary. If you've got somebody putting in a constitution that something is absolutely necessary, it's probably pretty important, right? I think Ohio, I think Virginia, Lindsay, Virginia, this is George Mason. That's where this came from, the Virginia Declaration of Rights. frequent recurrence to fundamental principles is absolutely necessary, absolutely essential. And we haven't even done it once since I've been elected. But guess what? Now the bill, because of this class over the summer, and we'll talk more about the National Federalism Initiative. I'll catch you up on that at the end. This is now happening, and we're going to invite your states to join us. I'll tell you about that at the end. Frequent recurrence to fundamental principles is what we're doing. What we're doing in this class, we're looking at fundamental principles. Richard Henry Lee, he's the guy that rode up with the Virginia Declaration and invited the rest of the colonies and say, we got to declare independence, right? If a nation means its systems, religious or political, that they should have duration, it ought to recognize the leading principles of them in the front page of every book. Do you have in the front page of your family book that the people are sovereign and what federalism is about? Because he said, if we mean our systems to endure, we should write them in the front page of every family book. That's what we're doing in this class. You guys probably know this. I love the story. Every single spring training, right about now, Vince Lombardi, the head coach, Hall of Fame coach of the world champion Green Bay Packers. These are professional football players. He started out every year, gentlemen, this is a football. This is how big it is, how much it weighs. Here's the circumference. Here's how many laces there are. Here's how far apart they are. You believe that, right? Can you imagine you're sitting there going, my God, I get paid to do this. Fundamentals. He'd walk them out on the field. Gentlemen, this is a football field. Here's how wide it is. Here's how long it is. Here's what the hash marks are and the lines and the end zone. And here's the goal. Every year he would start that way. Then they'd go to a stance. And they'd go to running. And they'd go to blocking. And every year. This is a football. Our government is so critical, so important. They told us in our Constitution, frequent recurrence to fundamental principles. Don't get thinking that, oh, we got somebody joining us. Hello, friend. So, yeah, there you go. Article 138, frequent recurrence. Thank you, Carol. See if you can find that in your Constitution. And some of them, you guys, some of them took it out. Because they didn't know what fundamental principles were. Like, what in the world is this? Why did they stick that in there? They must have been smoking something when they put that in the Constitution, because we're so smart. They couldn't have meant anything by that, and they took it out. See if you can find that. Let me know. All right, so here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to break this into two parts. Part one is about the structure of our government. Every system is perfectly designed to achieve the results that it gets. Part two is going to be about how we work that system, our role in that structure, how that structure helps us as our sovereign responsibility. Hey guys, if you would please mute.
So we were together, did our little Georgia tour.
You guys would all mute, that'd be really helpful. Thanks, guys.
11 months ago, whenever it was.
It's Mike.
There we go. There we go. Thank you. All right. So first three principles, the first three no's, right? We're going to talk about 6 no's. We've got to know that we're the boss and what that means. We've got to know that it's the structure of our government that secures our rights. We've got to know that the states are responsible for that structure. This is the structural part one of our journey. Part two is how do we use that structure to fulfill our sovereign responsibility? Because it's our job. We're responsible for that. The 2-year-old's not responsible. It's us. And it's the structure that helps us do that. And so we have to know the character and the abilities of our state agents. I mean, more so than our financial manager, more so than the person we'd give our wallet to that we would trust our children with. I do a lot of estate planning, you guys, wills and trusts and stuff. And the question that people agonize over, who would care for my kids if something happened to me? And they agonize. What are their values? What do they know about children? What is their demeanor? Can they make a living? Do they know how to do this? Agonize over that. We should agonize even more so over who we entrust with our responsibility to protect the system that secures our life, liberty, property, pursuit of happiness. That's on us. The second one is how do we delegate our sovereign responsibility to them. It's one thing to take them, but then how do we actually get them?
What if you want to call them
Their job.
medications and
I wish I could do sign language. Can they see me? Can you guys see me?
Yeah. We can see
Okay.
on the monitor there. So.
All right. You can't hear me though. You got nothing.
Okay, they say they
They can hear.
You can hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
You can hear me now. All right. Yay. All right. Please mute on your end, please. I was trying to mute because I got a whole bunch of back chatter from what was going on and somehow that screwed everything up and I don't even know where we were now.
They can't unmute themselves.
Please mute if you would, please. Thank you, Cade. All right, let's see if we can figure out where we were now.
Now, Ken, they will not be able to unmute themselves now.
Yeah, that's
You're gonna have to have
okay.
them- You're gonna have to have them raise their hand or something. if
Yeah.
they wanna talk.
Yeah, that's right. All right, guys. So yes, if you would please, yeah, we'll just get to where you can raise your hand and that. And I just had a whole lot of back chatter. Like we couldn't even hear here. So yeah, type questions, please. Type them in the chat. And holy cow, we got all this cool technology and it goes south like that. All right, let's see if we can figure out where we were. So first three no's are about the structure. The structure is the tool, the machine. The structure is the machine that secures our liberty. The next three no's are about how we direct our state agents as our tools to operate that machine. And we own the machine, guys. We own the machine. Now that's good news and bad news. That's $37 trillion debt. Guess who's responsible for that? The $2 to $3 trillion overspend? Members of Congress that are giving pharmaceutical companies 78,000% return on investment? That's us. And we're gonna, I believe we're gonna stand and be accountable for being mesmerized by Dancing with the Stars while companies are paying members of Congress far away to yank out a 78,000% return on investment on our kids. You guys get the drift, right? This is serious, man. We got to get going on this. But the good news is, if we know the structure and we know how to use our state leaders and we lift right where we stand, we don't have to go to Washington. We don't have to worry about Mitch McConnell or Mike Johnson or what's his name from New York, Schumer or Donald Trump or Harris. We don't have to worry about any of them. We lift right where we stand, and then you speak with the voice of a state. And then guess what, guys? We probably have 10, 15, 20 states on here right now. If we build out our leverage, we speak with the voice of 20 states. And we fix the structure because our kids are counting on it. All right, let's get going. So if we do this, if we know we got those 6 no's, you could do this job in 5 minutes a week. I want to know who on here does not have 5 minutes a week to save our country. I'm gonna even stop the share. I want to look you guys right in the eye. All right, come on now. I want to see there with you. Who doesn't have 5 minutes a week to fix that mess? Come on, who'd you raise my? No hands. All right, so you guys, here's the fine print. Because I'm a lawyer, I got to give you all the details. The fine print on this. You guys ready for this? Gary, are you with me? You don't ever get a week off ever again. Dennis, no more. You don't ever get a week off. Monica, you don't ever get a week off again. 5 minutes a week. If you're sick, you're on life support, 5 minutes a week. Carol, right? 5 minutes a week. Danny, Chris, Julie, come on now. Can we do that? Is everybody still in 5 minutes a week? Can we do that? You guys, if we do this, I'm telling you, we're going to fix this thing because that's the way it was built. It was built for us to succeed at governing. It was engineered for that. It was built for that. Let's go figure out what we got to do then. All right, so here we go right now. By the end of what we're going to talk about, we've already gone long, but we got another half hour. by the end of what we talk about, you're gonna know what it means that the first and fundamental principle in the science of American government is that people are sovereign. That's the first principle. Those fundamental principles we're supposed to frequently recur to. Number one, people are sovereign. That means we're the boss of this system. So we don't have to get all worked up. If we're responsible for the mess, the good news is we're responsible to fix it. It's in our hands. I think that's good news. I don't have to worry about who the next president is. I don't even have to worry about who the next governor is. Because I'm the sovereign. I'm in charge. You're in charge. And together we leverage our voice. Man, I think that's great news. We can do something about it. You know the drill, right? You know the thing. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. Most incredible governing statement in the history of the world. Statement of principles endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Now, what that means right there, there's a couple important things. Unalienable rights means we can't give them away. You can't sell them. There's nothing you can do to get rid of your rights. Government may try to own you for a while, but it's not going to do it for long. And because in American government, the only one in the history of the world, we know we've got an exit interview. We've got an exit interview. We're going to stand before that Creator. The government of the United States of America was founded on the principle that we're going to account for what we do with our life, liberty, property, what we do with this governing structure that was given to us. That's unique in all the world, in all the history of the world. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and it says that among these, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. That's not an incomplete list. That's just laying among these. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Ninth Amendment, right? Ninth Amendment. I hope you'll memorize the Ninth Amendment. That gets a short shrift, the Ninth Amendment. Constitution shall not be construed to deny or disparage all the other rights retained by the people. That's among these. That's where that came from. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, that's only part of the list. Everything that we didn't delegate to government, right here. Because then it says, this is my favorite statement on what pursuit of happiness is. This is a leader in Utah, Thomas S. Monson. He says, God left the world unfinished for man to work his skill upon. He left the electricity in the cloud, the oil in the earth. He left the rivers unbridged, the forests unfelled, and the cities unbuilt. God gives to us the challenge of raw materials, not the ease of finished things. He leaves the pictures unpainted, the music unsung, and the problems unsolved, that we might know the joys and the glories of creation. How much glory and how much joy will there be when we can look our children and grandchildren and say, we didn't allow that to be passed on to you, right? We didn't allow a broken government to be passed on to you because we used the power to create that was given to us. That's what we were given. He gave us that power to create and act like our Creator, and that's the joy, that's the glory, that's the pursuit of happiness. And then this is one of my favorite parts. It says, to secure these rights, governments exist among men. If you were going to give a one-question quiz to your state leaders right there, what's the purpose of government? Secure my rights. Is it to give me things, and who can compete to give me the most? Is it to get a 22,000% return on investment or a 70? No, secure my rights. Deriving their just powers from right here, not the president, not the governor, not the Congress, deriving their powers from right here. Imagine if government worked for you again. Your choice. It's entirely our choice. Right there. And so after they get done with the Declaration, they didn't hide the ball right there. They said, we the people, a gajillion times bigger than everything else. That's where all the power, that's where everything in this government starts right there. We the people. And Jefferson says, sometimes it said man can't be trusted with government of himself. Can he then be trusted with the government of others? If we can't govern ourselves, well, have we found angels in the forms of kings to govern? Let history answer the question. You guys, they debated over and over and over again, can the people govern themselves? Or are the masses asses? And he even says, the mass of mankind was not born with saddles on their back, nor a favored few booted and spurred, ready to ride legitimately by the grace of God. I don't know, any of you born with a saddle on your back? Not at all, right? They built a government for us to self-govern. They depended on it. Every government degenerates when trusted to the rulers of the people alone. When we just say, oh, you got it. Let me know what you did. Let me know how it works out. I'm not going to follow up on you. I'm not going to give you the job description. People themselves are the only safe depositories. Right back to that 2-year-old thing. We know, like a 2-year-old, government's going to make a mess unless the people are keeping an eye on it. And then you know the Franklin story, right? He's walking out. Mrs. Powell, Dr. Franklin, what have you given us? A republic if you can keep it. Not just some general, royal, amorphous you. A republic if you can keep it. Government was instituted of God for the benefit of man. He's going to hold us accountable for what we do with it. It's up to us. Now this, you guys, James Wilson is one of my favorite founders of all time. James Wilson signed the Declaration of Independence. He signed the Constitution. He's a handful of only 6 that have done that. Then he was an original member of the U.S. Supreme Court. He's a committee all by himself. And when George Washington was elected unanimously, he selected his cabinet, and they're getting ready to get down to business. George Washington, who presided over the Constitutional Convention, called on Judge Wilson to teach him and his cabinet about the new Constitution. And when Judge Wilson is teaching them, this is in the first set of law books in the United States, the dread and redoubtable sovereign, the feared and ultimately to be respected sovereign, when traced to his ultimate genuine source has been found where he ought to have been found, right here, free and independent man. Then he goes on to say, this truth, so simple and natural, yet so neglected or despised, may be appreciated as first fundamental principle in the science of American government. Frequent recurrence to fundamental principles. What does it mean that we're sovereign? You know, does it mean we get to be the bossy boss and I'm the boss of you, you work for me? How well does that work in your company? Right? Servant leader. Come alongside, we're going to teach, we're going to train, we're going to help everybody understand this is how American government works. That whole each over the head and whatever, that's somewhere, that's not here. Here it's that servant leadership, because we know we are endowed by our Creator. The definition of sovereign, my wife teaches me, she goes back to words all the time. What does that word mean? We don't talk about this a lot. Sovereign, the highest authority without control. That's you. Supreme in power, possessing supreme dominion, superior to all others. This is one I like the most. Supremely efficacious. I have to stand there. I don't know why. It just feels like a Superman kind of pose to say that, you know. Supremely efficacious. That's the good news. We're responsible. We're supremely efficacious, superior to all others. Let's get down to it, don't you think? Let's get down to it. Our union is now complete. Our Constitution composed, established, and approved. You are now the guardians of your own liberty. Unless Dancing with the Stars is on. You are the guardian of your own liberty, which means we're responsible for all the bad. We're able to fix it. Constitution is not an instrument for the government to restrain the people. We don't work for government. It's an instrument for the people to restrain the government. We don't watch it, we don't show up, it's gonna do what it's gonna do. George Mason again, all power was originally lodged in, consequently is derived from people. I love the way he says this. We should wear it as a breastplate and buckle it on as our armor. You ever see, if you watch The Chosen or some of the things about the Pharisees and that, they put a little box, you guys probably know what it's called, I think that was a phylactery, is that what that's called? They put this little box and they'd have some of the scriptures on their head and they would buckle things on as a breastplate. He said, the fact that all power is derived from us, we should tattoo that on our forehead. We should wear that as a breastplate. We should buckle it on every time we get dressed. All power comes from you. You're not the servant in this government. Now, we're also not the bossy boss. I love this story. King Louis the 16th he was taken off the throne. Deposed is how they say it. That's the word I was looking for. He was deposed. And they had the people that did that had this great idea. If we take his son and we get him addicted, women, alcohol, food, whatever, decadence. And for week after week after week, they tried to ply him with anything they could to just get him addicted to things. And after week, he just wouldn't. And they finally broke down. They're like, everyone does this. Why won't you succumb? I was born, I can't do what you ask. I was born to be a king. I was born to be a king. Imagine if you knew you were training your son or your daughter or your grandson or your granddaughter to be the king of the country. Think about what you'd want them to know, right? I mean, I think about that because in America, we're the sovereign. We probably want them to know about economics. We certainly want them to know about law and policy and history and political science, influence, personal relations, probably languages, things like that. Because we were born to be a king. Every one of us in the United States of America. Those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must scream and shout and write all cap emails. Must, like men, undergo the fatigues of supporting it. Those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom, we're responsible for the bad, we're responsible for the good. One of my favorite stories, Mark Meckler with COS tells this a lot, but he's the one that introduced this to me. There was a historian, his name was Mellon Chamberlain. In 1842, he's this young historian, and he'd been studying the American Revolution all his life. He was probably born in 1822. I'm not quite sure. I got to find out what that is. But Mellon Chamberlain discovers that there's one last survivor of the Battle of Lexington and Concord. We celebrated 250th anniversary a couple weeks ago. There was one survivor left, Captain Levi Preston, 91 years old. Mellon Chamberlain searches him out to just confirm what he already knows, because he knows all about the American Revolution. He's read it in a book, right? So he finally gets an audience with Levi Preston, Captain Preston, last survivor of this battle. And if you've ever been Lexington and Concord, right? Lexington, you stand on that green, there's a line where 77 men just stood on that line, no farther. This is the line we're going to defend. On the monument, it says, here they nobly dared to be free. They nobly dared to be free. Levi Preston was one of the Minutemen that after that shot heard around the world, they mustered out and came to the battle. And you had hundreds and hundreds of British uniforms, their drums. And if you've ever been there, it's just a little road. And so it's a little road through the trees, and these 77 are just standing there. And they're filing down in their columns and their uniforms, and here they come marching. Can you imagine what that'd be like? Here we nobly dared to be free. And Levi Preston comes out and he's in the battle, and Mellon Chamberlain then asks him, he says, "You do it. Why did you go out that day? I mean, against hundreds, thousands of armed, equipped, trained British soldiers, the most powerful army in the world. Why'd you do it?" He's like, "We do it? Yeah. Why'd you go out there? Why? Well, yeah, was it the Tea Party? You know, they were taxing the tea and they threw it overboard. I don't drink that stuff. Well, was it the tax, the stamp tax that you had to put out? You had to have a stamp on all your documents, and that was a tax, or you couldn't do it." And he's like, "Governor locked those in the army. We didn't deal with that." Well, was it Locke? Was it Sidney? Was it Hume? Was it Montesquieu? I don't know who you're talking about. We don't read those things. We read Watts hymnals in the Bible. That's all we read. Well, why'd you go out there? Why? Young man, for 5 generations, we governed ourselves. And we always meant to, and those redcoats meant that we should not. For 5 generations, we always governed ourselves. We always meant to. They meant that we should not. Right now, you guys, there are people that are buying members of Congress so they can get reelected. Because they don't mean that you should govern yourself. Do we mean that we should? Is there a line where we will nobly dare to be free? That's our heritage. That's our DNA. That's what it means to be an American, I believe. Jefferson, yes, we did produce a near perfect republic, but will they keep it? Or will they, in the enjoyment of plenty and dancing with the stars in the football game, lose the memory of freedom? Material abundance without character is the surest way to destruction. Will they keep it? Jefferson and Franklin said the same thing. Will you keep it? This was right before the last election. Jonathan Turley said there's a crisis of faith in America. We're rejecting the Constitution, embracing violence. You know that 55% of people in the opposite party of the president think it's okay that he'd be assassinated. My friend on the boat coming back from Fort Sumter, to just talk about governments, scream and shout, can't stay in the same room. We're in a challenging spot where people think the Constitution and violence is the problem. Leading up to the last election, one of the trending words or terms, if you do the search terms, was civil war. Civil war. Like it's glorified. You guys, civil war is not glorious. There's nothing glorious about it. I'll tell you what is glorious. Committing to give 5 minutes every single week to fix our government. That's glorious. Governing ourselves and nobly daring to be free in the face of this, that is glorious. And I'll tell you, our children, our grandchildren depend on us to do it. 41% think civil war by 2029 is possible. Maybe sooner. Not the answer. I'm telling you, it's not the answer. The answer is right in our hands. This little guy, right? First thing he says, "Don't see me. We have a government that's trying to hide what it's doing from you." We need to share with our fellow Americans so that it is seen, that it doesn't get away with "don't see me, mom," right? Here's what Samuel Adams, liberties of our country, the freedom of our civil constitution, they're worth defending at all hazards. What's the alternative? China's going to protect your liberty? France? Maybe Barbados. They'll step up and shine the light of liberty. Nothing against Barbados. I'm sure it's lovely. Right? They're worth defending at all hazards. Think of what the alternative is. It's our duty to defend them against all attacks. Our worthy ancestors transmitted to them to us with care and diligence. If we suffer tamely a lawless attack on our liberty, we encourage it and we involve others in our doom. Millions yet unborn may be the miserable sharers of the event. Because we've been sleeping for a few decades already, there are millions that don't even know what freedom looks like. Real freedom, real constitutional liberty, where we govern ourselves in our states, we band together for world peace. I love this quote, Condoleezza Rice. I'm an American, nothing's impossible. I have a wall hanging in my office here in the Capitol, Muhammad Ali. And it's this whole thing, impossible is just a big word that small men throw about. And he goes on and on and on. And the punchline is impossible is nothing. We're an American. We have received a very special gift. It doesn't, and then here's the best part, you guys. We're going to talk about this all the way through. We're just going to wrap this up here pretty quick. It doesn't take a majority to prevail. It just takes an irate, tireless minority keen on setting brush fires in people's mind. Is anybody upset that you've been saddled with 37 trillion in debt? Anybody bothered by the fact that we're going to pay $1.5 trillion this year for nothing? That we've got, flying monkey poop and shrimp treadmills and teapot museums and bridges to nowhere with your tax dollars? It makes me irate. Now we're looking for a tireless minority keen on setting brush fires into people's minds. That's what we're going to do here, you guys. We're going to own our country. Now, I speak in churches often, and when I do, the pastors get a little nervous because I tell them first up, I said, I'm going to give you the punchline, and then you don't ever have to come to church again. The bottom line of this whole thing is Jesus and love. You're dismissed. And the pastor gets a little nervous. I'm like, whoa, we're not going to do that, are we? We're going to keep coming back every week until we've written those laws on our hearts and in our minds. These fundamental principles, frequent recurrence to fundamental principles, only if you want individual liberty and free government. If you don't care about that stuff, you're dismissed. You're dismissed if you don't care about individual liberty and free government. If you do, frequent recurrence, so we can write these laws on our hearts and in our minds. So here's kind of part of another one that we're going to put on as our armor and our buckler, right? Every member of the state ought to diligently read and study. Those are different things, right? Diligently read and study the Constitution, teach the rising generation, because remember, they're the kings and queens. Remember how we would teach them if we knew they were going to be the king? By knowing their rights. Rights we don't know are no better than rights we don't have. Rights we don't exercise are no better than rights we don't have. By knowing their rights, they'll sooner perceive when they're violated. They'll be better prepared to defend and to assert them. Rights we don't know are no better than rights we don't have. Rights we don't exercise, no better than rights we don't have. All right, so you guys, there's this Biblical Citizenship Patriot Academy. Many of you are engaged with that. They've got about, 30 some odd thousand Constitution hosts. I got some of the materials over here. There's some basics of the Constitution. Those basic principles of the Constitution, that biblical citizenship, Constitution alive, remember frequent recurrence over and over and over again. And then what we're talking about here then is what do we do with that? Once we know what Article 1 is about, and Article 2, and Article 3, and Article 4, 5, 6, 7, that's all there are, guys, 7. There's only 7. And then we know about the 27 amendments. We've got to know that over and over again. They do a great job. They do a great job, and it's free. So that over and over and over again, what we're doing here then is what do we do with that? Now that we know, and you guys, I learn something every time I go through Constitution Alive. Every time I go through biblical citizenship, I learn something new. And so now what we're going to do is what do we do with it? Remember, the first 3 are the structure. We're the sovereign. What does that mean? Next week, we're going to talk about the exceptional structure. So we're the boss. What are we the boss of? It's a unique government, you guys. It's not like any other government in the history of the world. And even still, even though these countries have copied our Constitution, it's our number one export. There's still no other country like ours. If we put the machine back in the shop, remember, every system perfectly designed to achieve the results that it gets if we keep it properly maintained. Then week 3, we're going to talk about that it's the states that are responsible for. We start getting into how do we do this? How do we exercise our sovereign responsibility in this system through the state leaders that we elect, that we hire, right here where we live, right? And the promise, you guys, right? When we know these things, you stick with us for 6 weeks, you bring other people in, 5 minutes a week. This is an hour and a half. You guys are making an investment in yourself to know how to run your government. But I promise you, as you know this, and we're going to keep going back again and again and again, you can fix, restore, maintain your government 5 minutes a week. Are you good with that? I need you next week. I need you to bring other people next week. In Utah, we have something called an impact council, where we start getting people in every legislative district to join together. And you're going to see how even a few people in each legislative district make a difference. Now, in the iGovern website, we've got the back end where you've got those impact communities there so that we can start linking everyone together. But the goal, you guys, is to get 10,000 people in at least 10 states. We call it the 10 by 10 initiative. 10,000 people that are equipped to self-govern at least 10 states. And then what we're doing here is we're going to be your servant leader continuing education center. Because we got to keep learning and studying and reviewing how do we operate this greatest governing machine in the history of the world. You know, I mean, Mark, when you know, in your job, once you got your job, you never studied anything about it again, did you?
Constantly.
All the time, right? We're talking about this most incredible governing machine ever. We've got to keep coming back again and again. That's what we're working on here, is to be your servant sovereign center. This you can download for free. This was a little book that I wrote to myself. When I was on the eve of my first election, I was reading the Constitution. I came to Article 6, and it says, members of the state legislatures are bound by oath or affirmation to uphold the U.S. Constitution. And I was floored by that. I didn't know what, I mean, me, what power, what right? What do you expect of me to do as a state legislator to uphold the U.S. Constitution? And I was so hit by that. I went and studied. I tried to read everything I could on that. And finally, one day I took all my notes, went up in the mountains in my trailer all by myself. I'd never done that before, and wrote it into a little outline. I shared it with Rob Nadelson that you can see on there. He wrote a foreword. And I can still remember where I was driving. He calls me, he says, this is really good. Can I write a foreword? And can we get this out to state legislators everywhere? That's what that is. We've got some copies here. You can download for free online. You can find it on Kindle or on Amazon if you want to get a hard copy. But the next book that we're working on, and the workbook that is there in the website that you can get, the next book is Just Say No, KNOW, You. Not the states, you are the answer to what ails America. It doesn't matter if the states are, trying to do what they do. One election cycle, it's over. But you, as the boss, when you know your responsibility, your job, your powers, that's when we fix this thing. So you've got Facebook page, you've got iGovern Facebook page. There's a general one, and then there's also a Facebook group that if you log into there, we'll admit you in, and that's where we can start chatting. But even better than that, we've got our own. In fact, let me show you this. I want to show you right here. Right here. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, so this is our very own back end. It's like our own Facebook group right on our website. So when you log in, you're going to go to an impact community, Arizona, Florida, Lori there in Colorado, and you get in and you can start chatting and coordinating in your own state right there. And then we've got a national group right here that we can start working everything together. And so you've got this discussion part, then you've got the learning part. Here's where the workbook is right there. And then here's where you You can get people in and you can watch the videos. So if you miss a class or you want to go back and review something, you got the videos right here. And you can go and watch those, and we'll keep updating them. But you've got all of that right there on that website. And then, you know, here we've got some of the basic information here, but we're trying to get people in together so we get 10,000 people in at least 10 states. And you're going to learn more about why we're doing that so that we can leverage our voice. I don't know why I've got that right there, but oh, doggone it, you guys. I forgot to hit the record button. I forgot to hit the record button. I think we've got it on YouTube though. Mark, this is going to be on YouTube, right? It's going to be there. But, oh, that's right. I'm going to unmute you here in a second. We're going to chat. I forgot to hit record, you guys. Doggone it.
Okay, I have a photographic memory.
There we go. All right, so here's your, you guys have to remind me next time to hit record. All right, let's see if we hit the target. Let's see if we hit the target. You guys feel like you could go explain to someone why the first and fundamental principle in American government is that the people are sovereign? You think you could do that? You could share a little bit more about that? That's your call to action tonight. That's it. Let's see, let's get, we're going to start pulling the chat in here now. Scott, you want to unmute everybody and we'll let them do that. So that's your homework for this week. Your homework is just to share with one other person. And you know, if you have a hard time finding somebody, tell your dog. Explain to your dog why the people are the first and fundamental principle is that the people are sovereign.
Now, they should be able to unmute themselves when they want to.
All right, guys, you should be able to unmute and then we can chat here. Let me just finish this right here and then I want to chat with you a little bit and I got to share some other cool stuff with you. So I'm going to Texas to see this guy next week. And what I know, I can see it in my mind's eye so clearly. When he's trying to start a family and he's trying to buy a home and he's going to say, Grandpa, did you see this coming? Did you see this coming that it costs millions of dollars just to buy a simple home? That our government is in such a tough shape. We can't even, you know, we're just saddled with these burdens. And your 2-year-olds and your kids and grandkids are going to ask you the same thing. Then they're going to ask you the next question. What'd you do about it? That's coming, right? I mean, we know that's coming. With what we're putting off and spending their future, I can't bear the thought of that. And that's why I'm here. And I can't do this alone. So I need your help to keep that from happening to my grandkids. And I want to help you keep that from happening to yours because we're going to be accountable to that next generation. All right, so you guys, you got the iGovern website. You can get right there. You get on, get people in, get into those impact communities. And next week, we are going to be talking about the structure, this structure of our government that is so unique and exceptional. It's that structure that secures our rights. So bring your friends, bring your family, not that lady that was on the boat from Fort Sumter. She can stay out there talking to the sharks. Everybody else, bring them in.